Waking up to the sound of sirens and blue lights flashing from your window isn't exactly a fun time. It was about 2 in the morning and I had to work in a few hours. Sleeping early only has its benefits. I got off my bed and touched the cold wooden floor. Then I walked to my window. Looking through, I could see 2 police vehicles. One officer could be seen standing by the car. The other wasn't anywhere to be seen. Probably some drug crap or just a domestic abuse. The neighbors have been rather rowdy with one another. I didn't really care and went back to bed, hopefully this time with some sleep. What seemed like forever, I couldn't get the rest I needed. It was only 10 minutes after 2 and it sucked. I sat up quickly when I heard the noise of screaming and gunshots. I quickly ran back to the window and saw the cop by his car this time. The other still wasn't seen. On the second floor, there was blood splatter on the window. My eyes were in pure shock. I could barely see it, but I could make out the body of the other cop. Well, half of it. The legs weren't anywhere to be seen. Holy shit! Was all that was going through my mind. The cop by his car had his gun ready and was calling on his radio for backup. I just watched because I didn't know what was happening. Just as I was about to leave the window, a person walked out of the door. Blood covering his body as well as the head of the cop that was in the house. I was scared shitless. Worse than I'd ever been before. No horror movie prepared me for this. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. As I watched even more carefully, the person threw the head over the car. The other cop nearly cried. "You piece of shit!" the cop yelled while shooting his pistol. The person just stood there, taking the shots like it was nothing. "You piece of shit!" the cop yelled while shooting his pistol. The person just stood there, taking the shots like it was nothing. He was laughing with every shot. When the cop ran out of bullets, the person then walked forward. He licked his lips while his right arm began showing what looked like flesh and a hand turning into a claw. "Stay the hell away from me, you freak," the cop warned. The person continued to persist. The cop then tried to run away, but the man's legs had pure muscle like flesh growth. He then hopped and tackled the cop, who didn't get far. The cop cried out for help, and all I could do was watch in horror. The person wasn't even a person anymore. He just looked like muscle and flesh. Creature then bit the cop's right arm and started trying to yank it off, tugging and pulling. The cop screamed in agony as it continued. Soon it was successful, and he pulled the arm off. The cop, still alive, could pull out whimpers and tears, blood draining from where his arm once was. The creature then grabbed the cop's head. He looked like he was about to chop it off, but instead crushed the cop's head. You could hear the crunch and cracks as he did. The creature returned back to human, only now looking like my neighbor. Dale Henderson was the name. Could that mean this thing had been my neighbor the entire time? That can't be right. None of this makes any sense. What's weirder is no other cops have shown up yet. As if they know what would happen or couldn't care. I could feel sweat coming down my forehead. I could move, only watch. What I witnessed was the most horrifying thing in life. Creature walked back to the house, but stopped midway. My heart frozen. It was looking at me now, directly at me. The creature smiled at me and started walking towards my house. I finally broke free from being frozen and ran out of my room. The one thing that terrified me more than what I had just witnessed was my son was in the room beside me. He was left with me since my girlfriend decided she didn't want to have a family. I opened the door to his room and woke him up. Adrian, wake up. I yelled as I shook him awake. He woke up in a panic. What is it, Dad? He asked in a panic. You need to hide. There's a bad man coming and I have to deal with it. He shook his head and went to hide in his best spot. I went into my room and grabbed my pistol, a 9mm. I pointed the gun at the front door, just waiting for when it would bust through, but I knew I didn't stand a chance. If I died, I hope my son stays alive. I could feel my entire body shaking as I waited. What was taking so long? Everything was too quiet. All I could see was the flashing lights of the cars. As I listened and waited, I heard what sounded like crawling from above me. I looked up. I stood frozen at the sight. It was him. Human, with his head backwards, the big smile on his face. I quickly shot upwards, hitting his forehead. Then he fell to the floor, me barely dodging his body. I stepped away, knowing damn well that it's probably not dead. I shot it again a few more times, and still no movement. I sighed in relief, only for that to be too soon. The thing then turned into flesh and muscle, crawled down the hallway. I chased after it, only for it to disappear. Down the hallway, only one door was open, and it was my son's. Before I could even react, I heard a scream from my room. I ran straight to the room, only at the sight of utterly horrible. I watched in horror as I saw my son, dead, being eaten. His neck was chewed upon by the creature, and anger fueled me. I continued shooting the creature, only for it to run out of my window. I grabbed onto my son. His neck was broken and blood dripped from it. I held him tightly in my arms and tears flowed in my eyes. I cried out in horror and sorrow. More cops finally arrived. Too late for the sake of it all. The creature could be anywhere now, and taken a new identity. Maybe even my own name. Drake.